those other teams, we're going to move on to the Miami Dolphins, 9-8 last year. Vegas has them at 9.5, so they like this team again. With Tua being healthy, I think that's going to help. They were 4th in passing yardage last year, 12th in attempts. So obviously, they are very efficient through the air. When you have Jalen Waddle and you have Tyreek Hill, that's very easy to do. But they were in the bottom third in rushing attempts and rushing yardage. So again, you'll see where these running backs are going. Speaking of Tua, he's going QB 11, 90th overall. He finished QB 15 last year in 13 games, but there's one game I'm not counting that because he left early. I'd say 12 games.
2 games he left early.
Yeah, but one he did play a good chunk of.
Yeah.
One of them he left very early in the game. So to me, QB 15, he had a chance when you break down the numbers to finish as a QB 2 because his trajectory, if you take those games out and just put his averages across there and plug them into the other games he did not play. For a 17-game season, he would have threw for over 5,000 yards. He would have the second most touchdowns amongst quarterbacks. It would have been insane numbers. So the potential's there. I think QB 11, he's being slept on. I think, taking somebody like Dak ahead of him and some of these other quarterbacks, I think I would consider a safer bet, people want to say. But, I mean, you've got 3 quarterbacks that are going ahead of him that you could argue he should be drafted before. And that's Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. You can make an argument against all 3 of those guys that Tua is going to have a better finish than them just purely because of the way this team runs, how fast they run, and the volume and the passing that he's going to have this season.
Well, that's it. It's the weapons around him. And yeah, you can he's probably I'll say this, that Tua, if he stays healthy, is going to be a top 5 quarterback. If he stays healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's an argument there. The reason he's falling down and being ranked so low is because there's a lot of concern around his injury. It's not about him, because we saw it last year, the kind of potential that he has in shootout games, and he has the weapons to do it with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. This offense is fast. This offense likes the big play. They can score a lot of points, really fast, and they're not really a heavy run first team. They are still revolved around the passing, even though it is kind of that Shanahan offense. It is about getting playmakers the ball in their hands. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that to protect Tua this year, where it's just getting the ball out quick, getting it to Tyreek Hill, getting it to Waddle, let them make plays, and then all you need is for 2 or 3 of those hits to hit, and you score 3 times. What I will say about the quarterback position here, and this kind of goes along with the rest of the team. We'll start at quarterback and kind of move our way down. But if Tua did get hurt, I think that they have a serviceable backup in Mike White. I think that he can sustain an offense like this. I think that they were really handcuffed with Teddy Bridgewater last year.
Teddy Two Gloves.
Teddy Two Gloves. I think they were really handcuffed by him, or gloved by him.
He needs to be degloved.
He needs to be degloved. Oh, don't, please. That's gross. For those of you who don't know what degloving is,
don't look it up on Google.
Don't look it up.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Sorry. I didn't mean to bring that up. Yes. We have medical background, so trust me. You don't want to look it up.
Don't get degloved. But yeah, I mean, Tua is a candidate. I would love if he's going at quarterback 11. Great, love it, love that value there. If you're not gonna boot from the top 5 quarterbacks, and you're gonna avoid those guys, Tua is the next guy you should be going to get.
Yeah, he's my target in that situation. I like it because of the value. You're gonna pay up for Trevor Lawrence, you're gonna pay up for Justin Fields, you're gonna pay up for Herbert. And that I'm talking just outside the top 5 ADP here. You're going to even pay up for Deshaun Watson and Prescott. Those guys are 82 and 84 overall. They're the closest ones to Tua. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is going 54. You're really paying up for him at the QB 8. And like I said, I think you can be happy with getting 90th overall Tua, who I think can finish better than those guys we just mentioned.
Yeah, I agree.
So running back wise here, you got Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, both guys paired up last year. They both combined for 1,700 yards. They both had over 4.8 yards per carry. They
They
had
both
eight
had over 1,000 all-purpose yards.
exactly, and they both totaled up for 11 total touchdowns combined. So obviously on the ground, it's not a ton of work for the Dolphins here. But that being said, they are fantastic. They're both coming back. Mostert's going to, obviously, I think the number one guy. He's just quick. He's fast. McDaniel loves him. You do have a rookie in Devon A-Chain who's in here, who is another fast guy that they drafted because they wanted the speed. This team is all about pure speed here. And I like him, and you can take a late shot flyer on him because he's a guy who's going to have a piece in this offense, whether it be in the passing game or whether it be mid to late season, because we both know Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert can't stay healthy for a full season.
Yeah,
One of these guys is going down.
What I'll say, and this is one of the harder running back rooms to kind of decipher. Okay, so I think Mostert and Jeff Wilson are going to be the guys for the majority of the season. I think that A-Chain is going to get heavily involved. If you're in a dynasty league, if you're in a keeper league, if you're in a rookie redraft league, Devon A-Chain should be someone you are targeting early, because he is going to be this offense in the running game in the future. I think Mostert and Jeff Wilson both have another year or two left on their contract, and they're really valuable pieces. They both know this system. They both know what McDaniels wants to run and how this offense operates, and they're both fairly decent in pass protection. And so A-Chain, no one's knocking his talent and his speed, and people are, he is faster than Mostert, but like by a hair. And Mostert has like 6 years on him.
Yeah.
So Mostert has track speed. Like people are talking like A-Chain is like, he's beating Usain Bolt. Like Mostert can be in that race too. And that's what the thing is, like there's speed all around this offense. I like Mostert the best
too.
Right now because his ADP is further down than A-Chain's. Let someone else grab A-Chain
both
early in the season.
A-Chain's going ahead of those two guys in ADP. That's what I was waiting to say.
It's
people are drafting him, and it's very interesting to me. I mean, let's just say A-Chain did play yesterday, I believe it was, or two days ago. He had 10 carries for 25 yards in the preseason. So he's obviously going to be the next guy up. Like Gaskin had his a pretty good game too as well.
Wilson got hurt too.
Yeah.
This week. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be major.
No, I agree. It's like I'd rather take a chance on Mostert, who's going to get first swings up there way after him. I mean, we're talking about A-Chain going 98th overall, Mostert going 136 overall. Like he's almost 3.5 rounds later on. So there's plenty you can do at that point before that.
Like that's a really good gauge. Like based on your league, like if you're getting to the later rounds and someone goes A-Chain, like your clock should tick, and by the second round, if Mostert's still on the board, you should take him.
Yeah,
because
2 rounds after that.
Yeah, because again, like I had him last year, and he was extremely serviceable. He's not an RB2, but he's a great flex play, and if anything happens to one of your starting running backs, you can plug and play him very easily. He had a lot of, he wasn't blowing up and having 20-point weeks. He's not. If he was, we wouldn't be talking about A-Chain, right?
Yeah.
But he's not. But he's putting up the 8 to 15 points a week, and that's really good for a guy that's going to sit on your bench for the majority of the season. And for where he's going value-wise, who else around that range is going to put up consistent points like that? And I would say nobody.
No, I think if you can get, you're getting. Well, it's saying you're drafting a flex running back or your third or maybe even fourth running back who's going to put up 890 yards and a 4.9 yards per carry. That guy's going to be a perfect RB2 on a bye week. He's going to even be a flex play for you week by week because of just how much this offense scores and how good they are. So moving on to why they're so good.
I'll say this really quick is that I think Samaje Perine is going 3 rounds ahead of him, and Mostert's probably going to end up with better numbers than him at end of season.
Yeah, or similar at the least. Least similar. So let's hit the wide receivers. There's not a ton you got to talk about here because there's 2 guys that are really, they own majority share of this wide receiver core, and they're going to again this year, and that's Tyreek Hill and Hill and Waddle. Tyreek Hill, to me, going at wide receiver 3, 8th overall, you can argue he should be the first wide receiver off the board, because to me there's 2 wide receivers this year that can break that 2,000-yard mark. It's going to be Justin Jefferson. It's going to be Tyreek Hill. I don't see anybody else getting the volume and the downfield opportunities that this guy's going to have.
Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, at some point, but that offense needs to be rolling too. Like these teams,
and he's got to be healthy.
Yeah. So to me,
I would agree.
These two guys, and then so Tyreek Hill, we don't have to spend time on him at all. We know where he's going. We're okay saying out there, if you like Tyreek Hill in Miami this much, and you're a Miami fan, and you're like, your league mates would think you're crazy taking him over Justin Jefferson. It's not crazy. Like, you take your shot on a guy like this. To me, I definitely think he should be worth taking over than Jamar Chase. And now with the Kupp injury, I think he's definitely the top 2 guy off the board. So that being said, Jalen Waddle is the guy that finishes wide receiver 7 with 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. He had an 18 yards per reception, an insane number that I don't think is repeatable. I think that's the thing that's going to hurt him the most. Not to say that it's not, because he still has Tyreek Hill opposite of him. But that being said, I think his big playability is what is keeping him at wide receiver 10. To me, him and Devonta Smith are the 2 guys that are wide receiver 1s playing as a wide receiver 2 on their offenses. And I want – and Higgins, yeah, but I just think that those 2 guys, the volume for Devonta Smith and his route running, and the big playability for Waddle, like, those are 2 guys that I would want on my team either way because of what they can do in a week.
Well, those 3 guys, you put them on a lot of these teams, and they are number 1s, right? Like, they're that kind of receiver. Waddle is a number 1 receiver. You know, Devonta Smith is a number 1 receiver. T. Higgins is a number 1 receiver. They just happen to be playing behind another guy that's just as talented, if not better than they are. Waddle's a guy that he should finish in the top 10 again. This offense is really good. And between those 2, like, what he can do with the ball in his hands, and that's what makes him really special, and not John Mechie, is that he can take the ball to the house on a 5-yard slant, and just leave everyone in the dust. And he has that breakaway speed anytime he touches the ball, which is why his yards per catch is so high, because his ADOT is really not that high. He's not Tyreek Hill is the bomb go and get it receiver, where Waddle is get him the ball in his hands and he can go and take it to the house. And we saw it so many times last year where it was a 5-10 yard slant, gone. And it's really interesting. Like, we know that these 2 guys are going in the top 2 rounds probably. You know, Waddle's probably going the back end of the second round, where he should go. But like you kind of said with Tyreek Hill, if you're a top 6 pick, you could make an argument that Tyreek Hill should go anywhere in that top 6 pick. If he falls out of the top 6, and you're sitting there at 7 or 8 or 9, and Tyreek Hill is there, you go around and shake your league mates' hands, and you say, "Thank you very much."
Thank you.
And you should take him without hesitating. He is a top half first round talent that you should absolutely want on your team. And same with Waddle. You can make an argument anywhere in the second round he should go. I mean, I think that there are receivers that you would draft over him. I think, you know, there's A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb. You should go over him. But after that, yeah, go and make an argument. Like, I can make an argument for Waddle being the next guy after that. He's that good. And, you know, he puts up wide receiver 1 numbers. He's a top 7 wide receiver finish last year. The real question on this team is who's going to be the third pass catcher there?
Well, yeah, I'll get into. I think Cedric Wilson's a name that we want to talk about here, but I'll let me finish up with Waddle with 2 points here. So I do want to correct you on his average depth of target. He did have a 12-yard ADOT last year, so it was deeper than what I thought too. Like, it was still 33rd amongst all receivers, but still to have an ADOT of 12 is pretty good. And the crazy part, this is what makes him so good, is his yards per target was number 1. His yards per reception was number 1. His adjusted yards per route run was still number 4. His yards per route run overall was number 4. He was top 10 in yards per team pass attempt, and he had a true catch rate of 150%. He was number 3 amongst all receivers. He's just like we said, he's a number 1 wide receiver playing a number 2 wide receiver 2 role, which that's why he only had 116 targets last year. I mean, that number could even go up with, because he lost a lot of targets when Tua went out. You get those numbers up into the 130s, 140s. Now you see him possibly catch 100 balls. Who knows what he could do at that point?
Yeah.
I mean, he's still had 8 touchdowns. So Cedric Wilson is somebody who's interesting to me. It's hard for me to want to go even for a wide receiver 3 or a tight end on this team. But somebody like Sherfield, like we talked about previously and a little earlier, he came in when you had Hill or Waddle out with an injury or on breathers, and he was an effective pass catcher. Do I think that he was a flex play, or do I think he was a startable player last year? No, he wasn't. But if anything happens to this, one of those guys, Cedric Wilson's going to be this next man up. And I think he's somebody that is sneaky to have as a late round pick, or it's obviously somebody you're going to be willing to spend money on a waiver if something happens to these top 2 guys.
I don't know. I think I differ a little bit. I think the guy that I really would target, I mean, again, these are Cedric Wilson's. Essentially, you get him for free. Like any one of these wide receivers outside of the top 2, you can essentially get for free, which is really shocking because you have 2 guys on the team that are going to go within the first 2 rounds, and then no one else that's going to get drafted as a pass catcher.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of wild about this team. So someone else is going to have to emerge. I'm placing my money on River Craycraft. He didn't. It's another guy like Trent Sherfield. Like they kind of, no one really knows about them. They're not heavily volumed. Like he only had 9 catches last year. He had 2 touchdowns. His average depth of target was over 10. His average yards per catch was over 10. So this is a guy that I would at least take a flyer on late round. I think he is probably a better option than Chosen Anderson. Robbie Anderson,
Robbie Chosen. I don't know which one he's going with.
I don't know what he goes by anymore. I have no freaking clue. But I think he's a better option than him.
It's officially on ESPN. It's Robbie Chosen.
Yeah, it's Robbie Chosen, but he was
Robbie not being chosen in fantasy drafts right now.
Yeah, that's what it is. Robbie, you're not a Jet anymore.
Robbie's going to need to choose another name.
Your career went downhill after leaving the Jets, and that is not saying much because it wasn't great on the Jets. But yeah, I mean, Cedric Wilson was a guy we thought was going to be kind of the number 3 last year, and he really wasn't. But I don't think he was healthy last year. So he's a guy that's talented. I just don't know who the third pass catcher, and there's no Gesicki anymore. Yeah. So from a tight end position, like he was the number 3 target last year, which this could say a lot going back to the running back position is those guys are going to be heavily volumed in the receiving game now because of the lack of pass catchers that they actually have, at least in the number 3 role. So I think you might see that kind of, it's going to be Hill and Waddle up top, and then a lot of targets to everyone else.
And that's what I'm saying. But and like to me, like I don't know if Robbie Chosen, Cedric Wilson, like it's gonna be tough to even pick out who's gonna be that next man. Chosen Robbie. Rosen Chabi. I don't know which one's gonna be the one that's gonna be off there. So you're gonna really have to put your ear to the ground and listen to what the talks are if there is an injury in this thing. But to me, I'm not grabbing anybody that's going to take a chance as a flex play for me because it's not going to work out for you if you want to do that. Even at Durham Smythe, and this is the last guy in this team we want to talk about here as a tight end there, he is completely off the board for me. Gesicki was the only reason Gesicki was effective last year is because Gesicki's a fantastic pass catching receiver. Durham Smythe, he again, we see it time and time again in the NFL. These tight ends will have a game or 2 where they shine. They'll have like 50 yards and a touchdown. You're like, I got to go get him off waivers and start him next week. And then he gets no catches on 2 targets. I mean, it's like, this is not